kind of where to go. But I'm gonna say a few things. One is, I think what we all know is Yah's word was written at a particular time in a particular place for a particular people. And listening to something on the way down here, what I realize is Yah's word can never mean what it never meant. Now, we probably have all come out of church, so we know that we sometimes, well, oftentimes, things will become what the Bible means versus what it meant. And to understand what it meant, you have to really dig into the word and not eisegete, which is your own interpretation, but exegete, which is to understand what it was meant to do and meant for, and the specific people that was for. Not that it doesn't extend out from that. So sometimes when we read the scriptures, you know, I'll talk about the matrix through the lens of the matrix, which can be the system or the trickery of religion, because that's just as bad. And with us through the lens of Western culture, that's when we can miss some powerful truths in Yah's word. And somebody reached out to me while I was driving and talked about the cross and that he did it all. And, you know, I'm not even gonna call the name out, did it all. And I I said, I think he did what he had to do to give us the opportunity to do what we have to do. And let's turn to Matthew 16:24. And we're going to jump around today. Matthew 16:24. And, you know, the point was, well, you know, from a church standpoint, he did it all. And that's why the cross is so important. And we forget about what he said in Matthew 16:24. And I'm reading ESV. It says, when Yahawashai told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his own cross and follow me. And I told the person, just go to the verse and look at it, and you'll see that you have responsibility. He's not dragging you to the Father. He's opened the gate to get to the Father through what he did. We still have to pick up our own cross and follow him. For whoever will save his life will lose it. For whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come with his malakim, malakwam, in the glory of the Father, and he will repay each person according to what he has done. There is no buddy system, right? I can't leverage the buddy system as it relates to this. Truly, I say to you, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. I'm going to share my screen real quick. I wanted to, because he was talking about the person that called me, he was talking about the Messiah, and he had a very wrong, from my opinion, a very wrong understanding of who the Mashiach is, what his mission was. Because as you well know, from religion, we think of who they call Jesus as a mild, caring individual who, and I always say, has a long robe with a pageant sash and holding a lamb in his arm. And we already know what color they will mostly have in their mind that he is. And I said it couldn't be more different than that. Our Messiah was a revolutionary and a maverick and bucked the prevailing system of the day. And that's a little bit what we're going to talk about today. But I'm going to give some backdrop here historically. So the political climate, can you all see my screen? If you're looking at something where you can see my screen, can you see my screen?
No.
Nah.
You can't see my screen?
Nah.
Hold on one second. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna read through this and then we'll dive into some scripts. In the 330s BC, the Persians were overtaken by the Greeks under Alexander the Great. In addition to their military conquest, they took political control, and Alexander began to spread Greek culture and the use of their language throughout his kingdom. From about 320 to 198, we were controlled by the Egyptian Ptolemaic Empire, and a large Israelite community grew in Egypt, specifically around Alexandria. And you can see that in Acts 18:24. It was in Egypt that the Greek translation of the Torah, first 5 books, was made around 250 BC, and the rest of the Tanakh, quote unquote, Old Testament, was written about 130 BC. These books became the Greek Septuagint. In about 198, the Seleucid, the Syrian Empire, gained control over the Israelites. So we got passed around, right? First was Assyria, right? Then Babylon, then Medo-Persia, then the Greeks, then the Romans, right? Because of our disobedience. So this is detailing a little bit of that. They attempted to spread Hellenism, Greek culture, throughout their empire. We were forbidden to practice our customs or we'd be killed. Our temple was turned into a pagan shrine during this period of time. Then our boys, the Maccabees, hit the scene. And we know that's where Anakawa comes from, right? Hold on, somebody's coming in. And Judah Maccabee eventually won our independence in about 164 BC. He cleansed the temple, brought back the offerings, ceremonies, things of that nature from where they had ransacked and made a mockery of it prior to them taking over. That was called the Hasmonean dynasty, and it lasted until around 40 BC. Then the Herodian dynasty, which is where you'll see King Herod, began when Rome installed Herod, an Idumean or Edomite, as the king of the Judeans. Now, I'm not going to go to Jasher chapter 20, but in Jasher, the book of Jasher chapter 20, you can see where how we got here, how they got here is because early on, Kittim had absorbed a large part of Edom. So that would be why they would put a Herodian overcharge of Judeans. And to make it, I'm going to say complicated, even more crystallized, is that in the Judah Maccabee era, we force converted, which is actually post this happening, we force converted some of the Edomites to become, quote unquote, I'm air quoting, Jews. Okay. So what better person to put over a people you're trying to control than someone that is in the back pocket and actually a part of the Kittim family, as they were taken over. A large part of that was taken over, as you're seeing Jasher chapter 90. So when Pompey, a Roman, went to Jerusalem, he entered the temple of the Holy of Holies, and he took control of Jerusalem in 63 BCE, and that began our subjugation to Rome. It's at that point where we are starting to now highly anticipate the coming of the Mashiach. And you can see that in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Dead Sea Scrolls were actually written a little before the Septuagint and things of that nature, that from the caves of Qumran. But I want to make it clear because, go ahead on, Chris.
No, I was just saying, you mentioned the Septuagint. I think it was on the first page. Can you just go back up for me so I can see it real quick, just for me? I just wanted to take a screen.
Where is it? What did I say? Oh, right here.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So if I didn't put this in here, but the Dead Sea Scrolls were written even before these, because the Dead Sea Scrolls was us, right? It was the actual people, right? Versus this is a translation from our actual scrolls into Greek. And you can only imagine, if you remember, if you notice in the New Testament, every time Paul was brought in front of the Romans, they were surprised he understood Greek. So it's not like our ancestors were Greek speaking people. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything about the Septuagint per se, except for we don't know, you know what I mean, how the translation was, right? For that to be, you know what I'm saying? That so we did not do that, right? It is still, this was done to us because we obviously, as a result of our disobedience. So there are three major groups that are in Judea at that time. All this is framing the Mashiach, right? Because we need to understand the time, the place, and the people to really grasp the truth of the word, because that's how we get so off the track as a people nation, because we don't, especially like the gentleman I was talking to. I was very learned in the Bible, but the tapes playing in his head were deep, as all of us have come out of to some degree. So the Josephus is a Judean historian, and he has a series of books, and this comes out of the complete works of Flavius Josephus. But to make it clear as we move forward, why Joshua had such a disdain for Pharisees and Sadducees, we'll see in a second why that's the case. Remember now, Herod is an Edomite. Herod appointed people to positions. So just like in American government, when Trump comes in, what does he do? He gets rid of people that weren't his people, and he brings in his own people. So a large part of what we see in the Bible when he's interacting with people, Pharisees, Sadducees, the Sanhedrin, and the likes, they're not us, right? A large part of them. There are some, I'm not saying everybody isn't, there are some, because we see that with Nicodemus. Joshua talks to Nicodemus in a different way than he talks to the Pharisees and Sadducees, because he's talking to someone who is ignorant, lack of knowledge, right? Because he's been, and I'm going to use the word Judaism, because he's been in that Judaic system. That's not the way of Yah. It has taken that and bastardized it into some way, shape, or form. So in this, Josephus says, and you see in number 2, for there are 3 philosophical sects among the Judeans, let's just say it that way. The followers of the first of which are the Pharisees, of the second, the Sadducees, and the third set, which pretends to a severe discipline, meaning they're way more disciplined than the others, are called Essenes. These last are Judeans by birth. So what does that tell you about the Pharisees and the Sadducees? Because Josephus only points to the last group being the Essenes, which is what people thought Joshua was because of his bucking and being a maverick and a revolutionary against the religious system that was in place today. That is also the Qumran community where Dead Sea Scrolls and things of that come from. I can't remember what we talked about. It was last week or week before last. That the Essenes where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, that Qumran community, they left Jerusalem because of the bastardizing of the way of Yah. So they removed themselves. That's actually how we ended up getting the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now they were all killed, right? But they were willing to die rather than conform to the system as it was at the time. Okay. So I'm not telling you no, I'm not telling you anything. Josephus is telling you that there are three major groups: Pharisees, Sadducees, and Essenes. And the Essenes are the only ones that are by birth. Okay. That tells you a large part of the Pharisees and a large part of the Sadducees were not Israelites. Okay.
That's in the land at the time of Yeshua. Is
Yes.
Josephus writing? Okay. Okay.
Well, he wrote this works is written in reverse. So this is actually post 70 AD or around 70 AD. That's when he started writing his history down. Because but after 70 AD, our history was destroyed. You know what I'm trying to say? So he wrote our history down during that time frame. So he is actually looking backwards to that.
Got it.
All right. Before we get in, the land of Palestine was diverse with many nationalities at the time of the Mashiach. The word Judean in scripture refers to the inhabitants of that land. Again, some of the Pharisees and Sadducees could call themselves Jews, just like Paul could call himself a Greek. Paul was not Greek, but he had Greek citizenship because Judah Maccabee and them forced converted Edomites into quote unquote Jews. They legitimately could be called Jews, but they weren't Jews by birth. There's a distinction, right, between the two things. So it says, now at the time of the Messiah, the Sadducees were in control of the temple. The Pharisees were in control of the synagogues. Some of both groups were Edomites. When Herod came to power, he solidified his position by bringing in relatives of Idumea, that's Edom, appointing many Edomites to important position, and he killed the entire Sanhedrin except for Hillel and Shammai and put their own one in place. So that's what was going on. We know also that Herod had, or Herod's son had John the Baptist killed, right? So anybody that was going against that, we know that at the time of the birth of the Messiah, Herod said, kill everybody under 2 years old, every male child under 2 years old, because our soothsayers have said that the Messiah has come, so kill everybody under 2. And that's where Mary, Joseph, and Yahshua fled down into Egypt. And I don't even think I need to extend that. I don't know how you hide in Egypt unless you look like an Egyptian. Right. All right. Herod was practicing, I'm going to keep this word Judaism, because it is a bastardized mix of what Yah, the way of Yah, and the traditions of these people. So Herod was practicing Judaism, as many Edomites and Nabateans had been commingled with the Jews and adopted their customs. The Edomites were called the Herodians. So anytime in the New Testament you see the word Herodian, that is referring to Edomites from the Herodian dynasty, which is Herodian is Herod. In scripture and were politically aligned with Herod. They plotted with the Pharisees to kill the Mashiach. Now, we don't talk that much about the Sanhedrin, but that's another large group that had a lot of sway. They ran the highest court. It was 71 members, 70 elders, plus the high priest. They met in the temple. Sorry, this should have been. They met in the temple in Jerusalem. They were the final authority on Judean law. They supervised religious rituals and had significant political, judicial power, such as appointing the king and the high priest, declaring war. And I cut that off by mistake. Okay. And was saying it was trying high offense cases. All right. I'm going to pause there. I know that's a lot of history, but I wanted to frame. It's important to understand you can't understand the Mashiach without understanding that, right? He was born into a system that he couldn't recognize based off of the perversion of it by foreigners and by years of us. And when I say years, remember, we got the northern tribes went into captivity in 7 something BC. So we're talking about at this time, let's call it AD, 1 AD. We've been in captivity as a people nation in the northern tribes for 700 and something years, right? So we've been passed around and probably likely don't know what we don't know. So there is a perversion that's taking place in Jerusalem when Yah injects the Mashiach into the scene to get us to the point where we are now. I'm gonna pause there. Any questions, comments, feedback before we jump into some scripts?
Just like what you just said, you know, you can liken that to now, right? The perversion, here it is, you know, the perversion that we've, you know, grown accustomed to, you know, and even within the awakening. So it's been perverted, but now Most High has awakened us, and you know, and here we are stuck in, you know, stuck in this perversion. But Most High has awakened us to be able to walk out His instruction, His righteousness in the earth, which to everyone else, of course, is going to look like, you know, what the hell's going on. But it's the Most High's righteousness. Right. See what I'm saying? So, you know, basically the same thing. And Mashiach is the example of that. All praises.
And that is why the first thing I read was him saying, I did my part. This is Danny, the translation. I did my part. I went to the cross, right? I took on the sins of the entirety of Yashara'al, but I can't get you in. You have to participate in this. So take up your cross and follow me. Whoever loses his life for my sake will gain it, right? So there are things that we have to do. That was my discussion with them, right? And, you know, again, they want to talk about works and things of that nature, but it's not so much that part of it. So I said to him then, well, you must not understand Yahshua as a maverick. I know you feel like he came to do something and that he was very peaceful and all this, which tells me you haven't read the word. I mean, we were having a very deep conversation. So I said, it proves me you haven't read that much, or, which is more likely, you have tapes playing in your head. And even though you read the words, you didn't digest them as they're written, because the tape playing in your head shows him being docile and meek and mild and all that kind of stuff. Now, meekness is power under control, which he was, but I'm talking about the docile piece of it. And I don't recognize that Mashiach, right? So let's go. Well, revolutionary figure who seeks to fundamentally overturn existing political, social, and religious systems, often through radical action. That's what he was. And a maverick, an independent thinker who challenges established norms and traditions. He will often say, you have heard it say this, but I say this, right? That's the maverick part of it. Now we'll look at some scriptures, and I'm probably not going to go through all of these, but let's turn to Luke chapter 2. Let's look at just now becoming an adult. Remember, in our culture, at 12, you have your bar mitzvah, and that's your coming of age, so to speak. I don't want to say we had some kind of passing of age, but when you got to 12 as a male child, you were considered an adult, right? Times are very different, right, between where we are now and then. So you were of age. So Luke 2 is about the 12-year-old Yahshua at the temple. Luke 2, 41, 52.
I'm glad you're bringing this out, man. It's all praise to the Most High, because, you know, just the past couple of days I've been talking about, you know, critical thinking and us really, you know, knowing our culture, knowing who we are, knowing our culture, because it's going to have to cause you to, like you said, truly renew your mind and renew your thinking. And you said, just like you said, Mashiach was that maverick. You know, he was that G. You know what I mean? That, you know, because I know Scott and I talk about critical thinking a lot, right? Which has been completely lost to us. You know, we've been taught how to think like them, but now we have to try critically thinking and think like how the Most High wants us to think and live. So this is dope, man. It's beautiful.
Aman, and it is to your point. It's critical, no pun intended, because, you know, Romans 12:1, I beseech you, brothers, in view of Yah's mercy, to offer your body as a living sacrifice to Yah, holy and pleasing, right? That is your spiritual act of worship, right? So we have to die to the matrix, right? The religious systems. We have to die to that and let the word be the word. That's why I said the word can never mean what it can never mean what it never meant. And what we see today in religion, and you know what? Let me do this right quick. I've said this before. I'm going to prove to everybody on this phone. You see my screen, Blue Letter Bible. I'm going to type in the word religion. And you tell me where religion shows up when this search hits. So do you see it starts in Acts, right? It's used in the ESV, it's used how many of the times that is? 5 times. Do you see anything from the Tanakh that says religion?
No.
No.
And the answer, no. The answer to that is no, because there was no such thing in as we talk about our heritage and our culture, of a thing called religion. A religious system is something that was built likely for us to bind us into religious doctrine, which is doctrine and things of that nature, which is why the Mashiach was opposed to all of that when he came, and we'll see that through these scriptures. So there is no such word in Hebrew for a word religion. It doesn't exist. That concept is not a concept for us at all.
Hey, Danny, if you don't mind, go back to Blue Letter Bible, actually pull up what that word religion means.
All right, let me get back to good catch on that. Oh my gosh, look at that. Look at, I mean, now if we go deep, now obviously this is a Greek word, so it's not, we don't have a Hebrew concept for this, but in Greek, the KJV translates this word in a manner: superstition. Superstitious in bad sense, religious. Okay. So that is a matrix, right? Religion is another matrix. Right? That is truly another matrix. Thank you for that. All right, 241. 241. I'm gonna read this whole part. Now his parents, this is talking about Yahawashai, Yahshua. Now his parents went to Jerusalem, Yashara'al, every year at what? At Christmas or Easter? Which one does it say? At the Feast of Passover, right? And when he was 12 years old, they went up according to custom. So at 12, he had to go. I mean, we had 3 Aliyah feasts, right? Where you go up to Jerusalem. And the reason why they say up to Jerusalem is Jerusalem sat up. So no matter if you were coming from north, south, east, or west, you still had to go up. That's why it's Aliyah. You go up to Jerusalem because it sits up on a hill. The Bible talks about it's a city sit on a hill, right? So you had to go up no matter what direction you were coming from.
It seemed
and
like
he
he
was
turned
12.
12
So
in that season.
That exactly, yeah, I would. That's why when you read it specifically, and when he was 12 years old, they went up according to custom, right? So at that point in time, he had no choice but to go. They had no choice but to bring him because he is an adult from Yah's perspective, right? Because remember now, Deuteronomy, it's the
the men
Yah
had the men had the aliyah. They had the aliyah. So with him turning 12, let's say in that season, he had to report.
Yes, and this is where this.
It's just a lot different than December. It's a lot different than December 25th.
December, for sure. 43. And when the feast was ended, as they were returning, the boy, Yahawashai, stayed behind in Yerushalayim in Jerusalem. His parents did not know it, but supposing him to be in the group, they went a day's journey. But then they began to search for him among their relatives and acquaintances. And when they did not find him, he returned they returned to Jerusalem searching for him. After 3 days, they found him where? In the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. Now, this is before he had the Holy Spirit, the fullness of the Holy Spirit descend on him like a dove. So what I would say is that Joseph and specifically, well, both of them, Joseph and Mary did a heck of a job, and the community of Deuteronomy, you shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall speak of these Yah's ways when you sit at home, when you walk along the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign on your hands. They shall be fronted between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. So that is one thing that the Ashkenazis have done. If you go to Ashkenazi house, they call it a mezuzah, and it is that Deuteronomy 4 text in a scroll nailed in their front and back doors, right? Because they're literally, you shall put it there. So they did a heck of a job because he had much awareness, as you can tell, so much so that they were amazed at his understanding and his answers, okay? And when his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, son, why have you treated us so? Listen to what he said. Behold, your father and I have been searching for you in great distress. And he said to them, why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my father's house? You taught me all this stuff. I'm at the temple. I'm wrestling with the text and wrestling with the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the teachers that are there. Why would you be surprised that's not where I am? Right? 50, they did not understand the saying that he spoke to them, and he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was submissive to them. And his mother treasured up all things in her heart. And Yahawashai increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with Yah and man. When I read this, what jumped to my mind immediately was Matthew 22:14. Let's jump there. So we'll finish with it. Let's jump to Matthew 22:14. And I never define words by the New Testament. If it's a word there, I go to the Tanakh, figure out what the word there and define it there. Because again, the text can never mean what it never meant. I don't know if that's bouncing around your head, but the text can never mean what it never meant. And I don't define words by what's done in the New Testament, because that is not our culture.
Say it again for
right?
people in
the that is not our culture. We're in bondage at that time. We have to go back to the beginning when we were in obedience and look at the words and how they are defined. And then we can now move them to the New Testament, but in their proper context. Okay. That's how you'll get once saved, always saved, and all this mess from Christianity. The Bible doesn't ever say that at all. Matthew 20, what did I just say? I lost my own train of thought. You know how I get. Matthew 22:14.
22:14.
All right. Matthew 22:14. It says, if I can find it. Okay. I'm going to start. Let me see. I'm literally going to read 22:14, and then it'll probably take us somewhere else. So it says, for many, somebody read it in their text. How does it read in your text? Verse 14.
I got ESV. It says, for many are called, but few are chosen.
Okay, so and when you hear that word choke, so again, I'm gonna go back to go forward. So the two important words here are called and chosen. Now, see, if you don't understand Hebrew, you might think that Yah calls people, but then he chooses who he wants to get through, right? That's not it. That's not at all what it's saying Hebraically. in this one sentence, called and chosen. Called is the Hebrew word tawarah, which is to call. So he calls everyone. I wish that none perish, right? That scripture is real. And it seems like an oxymoron. That's why people tell you the Bible contradicts itself. Well, it does if you are learning it in Greek, meaning the Greek thought versus the Hebraic thought. It can feel conflicting. And because they will take one word and define it 19 different ways, so you're confused and you think the scriptures are counter to each other, where it's not the case. So for many are called, tawarah, Q-A-R-A, tawarah, is to call. Chosen, if you go look up chosen, it is yada. Yada means to know. And that's to know intimately. So now let's say it like it should be said. For many, I have called, but few I know. So, okay, now let's extrapolate that. If he calls everyone, but only a few show up. Okay? It's not he's choosing when you can real sometimes you read that and say, for many are called and few are chosen, as if, well, it's a random thing. He just chose Myron. He didn't choose me. No, Myron showed up to the call, and ergo, he knows Yah and the ways of Yah versus me not showing up there. So it's not chosen. I want to just kill that in everything you see in the New Testament about chosen. That doesn't mean, because it feels like, and that's what he said, well, it feels like some people are just chosen, right? And that's how I got here, is that some people are just chosen. I was like, that's not it. I know it says the word chosen, but you got to understand what that means in Hebrew. Again, this book is written at a specific time, in a specific place, to a specific group of people. And if you try to interpret this based off of a Western religious construct, you're going to get funny money versus the freedom of the truth. The Bible says you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free, right? So if you think you know truth and you don't, that's how the adversary binds us. And everything Yahawashai did, we've been talking about spiritual warfare. That's all he did from the time he went to this temple we just read to the time that he went to the cross. It was all spiritual warfare. None of his warfare was about this realm, right? It was about the future realm that he's going to be a ruler over, okay? So I hope that helped. Now let's go to, now this will help people understand Matthew 7:21. Go ahead on, Josh.
Yeah, so I just going to your point, how many are called, few are chosen. So he's calling everybody, but there's been a select few to answer the call or choose to have relationship or choose to answer the covenant. So this is, and do what's required in the covenant. And I'm gonna go up just a few verses up to verse 9. I'm gonna start at verse 9. Go therefore to the main roads and invite to the wedding feast as many as you find. And those servants went out into the roads and they gathered all whom they found, both bad and good. And so the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to look at the guests, he saw there a man who had no wedding garment. And he said to him, friend, how did you get in here without a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then the king said to the attendants, bind him hand and foot and cast him into outer darkness, in the place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, and few are chosen. So everybody heard that call, but there's been a few that chose to follow the requirements of that call.
Yeah.
I'm on to that. Yeah. Anybody have anything to add to that?
Yeah, and just
Where
to
was that at again?
Oh, go ahead. Dylan?
Now I was just asking where was that again that Josh just read?
That was Matthew 22.
All right.
Sorry,
It was the beginning. I just read the end of it. The very end is the beginning of that section in Matthew 22. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, no, just to Josh's point, man, there's a verse in Matthew 9. It says the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few.
There we go. So again, the harvest, right, is ripe for the taking. The fields are white, right? That, you know what I mean, that metaphor. But who's going to show up? So all of those are the same thing, but you see how they say it differently in each place, right? Specifically, that word would be the same in Hebrew, right? A torah, because he's calling everybody, but few are showing up, right? Which is why to lead to a remnant of people. All right,
Few
last thing,
the
top. That's
There's
it.
few willing to do what it requires.
So you just said that you willing to do the work. So what did we learn in Christianity? Christianity said, well, Jesus did it all.
Yeah.
We just need to believe that he did it all. You ain't got to do anything. In reality, the way of Yah is about doing, and not doing to earn, because I don't know who's on the phone, but doing doesn't earn you salvation. Because when we were in Egypt, just like we are now, when we were in Egypt before, he freed us in this Passover season from bondage and then gave us the instruction. So he didn't free us because we were obedient. He freed us because we called on him. And then he understood it was the right time. Because if you look at Joshua, we called on him 2 or 3 times and he didn't answer because he kept saying they're not ready yet, which is probably what's happening right now. Right? They're not ready yet. But then when he delivers us, he then gives us the instruction. Right? So it's not like we were following the way. No, we know we weren't following the way, because all you got to do is look at Moses go up to the mountain, and then in Exodus 32, we go build a golden calf and have an orgy like we used to do in Egypt. Right? So we already know it wasn't our works that delivered us. Works did not deliver us from our enemy. Yah delivers us from our enemy. We do works because we're supposed to be walking in the way of Yah, and that is the power position that we're supposed to be in.
Yeah. You
Right.
had said you said few, many are called, but few are chosen, or few know me intimately. You know, and it's the same thing. You see it in Matthew 7. He said, man, many of y'all say that y'all know me, that y'all done prophesied in my name, you know, but you don't know me.
Well, let's go there. That's
Depart from
exactly
me.
where I'm going. Matthew
7:21.
That's exactly where we're going right now. Matthew 7:21. So again, now it should be less confusing when we read this. And then I'm gonna go to Acts just to show you the point of how people were going through. Matthew 7:21. Not everyone who says to me, Master, Master, will enter the kingdom of Shamayim, but only the ones who do the will of the Father who is in Shamayim. On that day, many will say to me, Master, Master, did we not prophesy in your name, cast out demons in your name, and do mighty works in your name? And then I would declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. And I brought that up, and he was like, well, I don't understand how that is. Because he says, they said, we did it in your name, we did it in your name, we did it in your name. And then it says, and then I would declare to them in verse 23, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. Now, the key to this is Acts 19:11. Look at Acts 19.
Yes, sorry. Just to say, people miss that verse. You know, it says only those who do the will. You know, because at the end it says you workers of lawlessness. So you working for somebody. You just need to be working for Yah's will. Yeah. And people miss that do.
And real quick, adding to what Chris was saying too, when you go back, didn't we cast out demons in your name? Yahawashai's name's gonna ring out, but I still don't know who you are. You know, my name still carries the power. I'm gonna do what it's gonna do, but I still don't know who you are. Kind of like what Chris was saying.
And remember, no Yada in Hebrew is not, so I should have said that. Yada, no, in Hebrew is not, because sometimes we hear words, we hear them in Western thought. So no means like I know you. That doesn't mean that. No means, and knowing in that word yada is the how a man knows his wife. When I say that, intimately knows his wife, right? So it's not a casual, oh yeah, I know him. I mean, that's how it was before I got into this. I knew who Jesus was. You know what I mean? Right? So I could get in on the buddy pass through something. But that's not what yada means. Yada means an intimate knowing with someone, right? Like when in Genesis 1, well, getting into 3, it says he walked with Adam in the cool of the day. He knew him, right? So there was an intimacy to it. It wasn't like I'm just showing up for this thing. It's an intimacy to it. So don't interpret know as an intellectual exercise in your head, meaning I know Yah, I know Yahawashai. It's not that. I have spent time with them, is what it is. And they know me and I know them.
It's like when God knew Moses face to face.
Yes.
Or Abraham.
Yes. Yes.
I got a
That's the
precept
distinction.
Too,
so just okay, go ahead on.
No, I was gonna say, so I just came across this verse the other day, but if you go to Exodus 33, and this is when Moses was interceding after they had they was in disobedience with the golden calf. But if you go to Exodus 33, verse 13, and then you want
Exodus
me to read
33, 13?
Yeah, Exodus 33,
yeah, you go ahead.
Verse 13. Just 13. So I'll start at 12. It says, Moses said to Yah, see, you say to me, bring up this people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found favor in my sight. Now, therefore, if you have found favor in your sight, please show me your ways that I may know you in order to find favor in your sight. So you see, the two going hand in hand.
Yes. Yes. That knowing is an intimate knowing. Like there's no, again, just intellectual knowing. Like, oh, I know that. No, it's not that. It is a relational word. Let me say it that way. It's a relational word. It's a word built off relationship. Okay. Acts 19, just to give you a sense of that 721. Acts 19, verse 11. I'm just going to read a little bit of this so you can get the concept that the demonic realm understands the rules of engagement with Yahawashai and Yah. Right. So you see that here. And Yah was doing extraordinary miracles by the hands of Paul. So that even his handkerchiefs and aprons that had touched his skin were carried away to the sick, and their diseases left them, and evil spirits came out of them. Now that alone is a whole different study, right? But let's keep going. Then some of the itinerant Judeans, exorcists, undertook to invoke the name of Yahawashai Mashiach over those who had evil spirits, saying, I adjure you by Yahawashai, whom Paul proclaims. So do you think the Yahawashai that Paul proclaims means they have an intimate relationship with Yahawashai? No, those are the very people that he's talking about that we just read in Matthew 7. Get away from me, I ain't never know you, right? And let's see what happened to them, right? It says, I'm at 13 again. Then some of the itinerant Judean exorcists undertook to invoke the name of Yahawashai Mashiach over those who had evil spirits, saying, I adjure you by Yahawashai, whom Paul proclaims. The 7 sons of a Judean high priest, tells you right there what was going on in the land, named Sceva, were doing this, but the evil spirit answered them. So think about this now. So if you try to play the okie doke, the accuser is going to come after you, right? It says, but the evil spirit answered them, Yahawashai I know, and Paul I recognize, but who are you? So the evil spirits already know you ain't even got a relationship with Yahawashai. So yeah, you to Scott's point, you might call on his name, right? And things happen because of his name and Sham, his character, the power that he walked in. But now you're trying to cast out demons. Dog, Yahawashai don't even know who you are.
Yeah,
So he's not protecting you from anything. So we're going to beat the clothes off of him. If we kept reading it, it said to beat him naked down the road. You got a precept?
So it's going back to get the warrior die also can be processed as
Okay.
to experience. So this demon experienced Yahawashai. This demon had experience with Paul, but didn't have experience with these itineraries. So just James chapter 2, starting at verse 9, or reading at verse 19. You believe in the Most High is
Okay.
one. You do well. Even demons
Mm.
believe and shudder.
I'm on. I'm on. I'm on. That ain't even impressive. Right. The demons believe in Yahawashai. Just because you believe in him doesn't do it. Do you know him? Do you have a relationship with him? Yada him. Right? Do you have experiences with him? That's how you know. All right, Matthew 10:34. I'm just pulling out some scriptures that I was talking to him about on the road. Matthew 10:34. I don't know how you can think anything other than what it says. I'm just going to read that. Well, I'm going to actually read beyond 34. Matthew 10:34. This is, I don't have red in my ESV, but this is in red, right? I presume in everybody else's Bible. So it's Yahawashai talking. Do not think that I have come to bring peace on earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. I thought he came peacefully, right? I thought he came to be peace on earth. I could then playing in my head is the Charlie Brown thing, peace on earth and goodwill towards men. Where that happened? 34. Do not think that I've come to bring peace on earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a person's enemies will be ones of their own household. Whoever loves father and mother more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take up his cross, there we go again. You don't take up your own burdens and kill them, then I don't know what to do for you, is what he's saying, right? And follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Okay?
I feel like that sword is an idiom too, because you see that verse where it say the word is like a two-edged sword, separating bone from marrow. So that's definitely the whole time he was there, he was giving people that word, and it was causing conflict between people.
Well, yeah, 100%, right? But to your point, at the end of the day, he didn't come to bring peace, right? So it's probably a quintuple entendre, right? Around the totality of all that it means at that point in time, right? And his sword at this time is a spiritual sword anyway, right? Because he didn't harm a single person, right? He chastised Peter for cutting off dude's ear, right? Put it back on, right? Because he's like, this is my realm. We're not fighting here. And to that point, John 18:36. And I know this is one Chris we talk about often in our subgroup. This is Yahawashai talking to Pilate. But I'll start at 33. So Pilate entered his headquarters again and called Yahawashai and said to him, "Are you the Malak of the Judeans, the king of the Jews?" Yahawashai answered, "Do you say this on your own accord, or do others say it to you about me?" Pilate answered, "Am I a Judean? Your own nation." Now, I'm going to address this word. Every tribe was a nation, and all the nations were a tribe. Does that make, all the nations together also was a nation. So we have a nation of nations. Much like Africa, we call the continent whatever it is, but there are obviously all nations within that. Okay. So when you see nation, your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you over to me. What have you done? Yahawashai answered, "My kingdom is not of this world." my servants would have been fighting that I might not be delivered over to the Judeans, but my kingdom is not of this world. He said, if this was a physical fight, you don't stand a chance. But this is not a physical fight. I need you to go ahead on and do what you need to do, because this is spiritual war and is well above your pay grade. Because Pilate, he's telling him, dog, I'm putting it in Danny terms, dog, you don't have any power over me, right? If this was a physical war, you would have been destroyed. But it's a spiritual war. So just do your job. Right. Effectively, that's what he's saying. Do your job. So we see that he came spiritually. So Travis, to your point, that sword can be multifaceted in nature, but it's not physical. It's spiritual. This is all spiritual warfare. We'll have to go there, but Luke 4 tells you that. When he got the fullness of the Holy Spirit, and Luke 4, what happened? Shaitan shows up and he tries to get him out. You know what? Let's go. Sorry. Matthew, Mark, Luke 4. I'm going to try to.
Oh, yeah, that's how he fought the adversary. No, you're right. That's how he fought the adversary.
Yeah, it wasn't physical. So this is what you see. The adversary tries to take everything spiritual. I meant physical. And Yahshua responded everything spiritual. So when we say the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, they're mighty for pulling down strongholds, I would suggest that we lean on Yahshua's game plan. When Shaitan approaches you about some bull crap, you give him the word back, because that's your protection, right? That's your protection. He didn't negotiate with him and say, well, that's a good thought. I mean, if I jump off this mountain, because, I am this. He didn't rationalize out like Adam and them did in the garden. Well, did he really say that? Yahawashai just said, yeah, he really said that. So no, I'm not doing what you're talking about. But you see, because Yahshua Hashatan doesn't have any, he don't have a Shamayim, a heaven to take you to. He got a hell that you can go to him with if you want. Right. But at the end of the day, he comes at you, typically comes at you physically, and physically can be in your mind and the whole nine, but he comes at you that way versus the spirit. And we have to respond from a spiritual standpoint. So verse 1, and Yahawashai, full of the Holy Spirit, returned from the Jordan and was led by the Spirit in the wilderness. I don't even want to get into that. Wilderness means order. We're going to the wilderness because that's where we're going to relearn order. Right now, we live in chaos. Ayir is city, and that means chaos. Wilderness is dabar, and that means a midbar, that means order. So even with that, there's a trick of the mind, because when I first was reading the Bible, I was like, well, we want to go in the wilderness. That don't even make sense. Well, that's where you learn order. And if you've ever spent time in a wilderness area, you see the order of things. Hell, I'll just go outside tomorrow morning and listen to the birds chirp first thing in the morning. That sets off the plants opening up, that sets off the other thing. There's tremendous order in nature, that's why he's going to take us back into the wilderness, just like he took Yahawashai to the wilderness. For 40 days, being tempted by Satan, and he ate nothing during those days, and when they were ended, he was hungry. The devil said to him, if you are the son of Yah, command these stones to become bread. Yahawashai said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone. I'm not even going to finish the rest of them. His response was spiritual, not physical. Our response to any kind of valley should be spiritual, not physical. It's not a physical battle.
That's the same thing that Paul said in Ephesians, keep your sword on you, which is the word of Elohim.
That's right. 100. All right, let's jump to Mark 11:15. I'm going to just do a couple of quick. 11:15 through 18. Mark chapter 11:15 through 18. So let's see. Now, a few things he did. We know he said he didn't come bring peace. We know he was skilled even at an early age in Yah's word. He told Pilate, my kingdom is not of this world. He defeated Shaitan by spiritual warfare and obedience to the word. He didn't do what Chava and Adam did. Like, well, did y'all really say? Well, let me think about that. No, they just went straight to the word. This 15. And they came to Jerusalem, and he, Yahawashai, entered the temple and began to drive out those who sold and those who bought in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. And he would not allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. And he was teaching them and saying to them, is it not written? Okay, we got another example. My house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations. Now, again, all nations to get into the inner court were for the 12 tribes. The proselytes could be in the outer court. But when he's talking about all nations, he's talking about the 12 nations of Israel, because Yahawashai came back to gather all of the 12 back together through him to be able to go back to the Father. So that's what that is. But you have made it a den of robbers. And the chief priests and the scribes heard it and were seeking a way to destroy him, for they feared him, because all the crowd was astonished at his teaching. And when evening came, they went out. So that was the threat. All the crowd was astonished at his teaching, because he's teaching things contrary. He went in there because they had perverted, right? It says you need a lamb without spot or blemish for Passover. What they had begun to do, these Edomite Herodians, what they had begun to do is whatever you brought, they find fault with it. So you had to buy their thing. That's what's happening in the temple when he turns all that over, right? Because they're just running a system, much like today in America. They're just running a system in there that money goes to their pocket. So that's what ended up. So it came, by the time Yahawashai was coming around, most people didn't even bring the animals to Passover, because they knew it was going to be a waste of time, because the Pharisees, Sadducees, Sanhedrin were going to tell them, oh, no, this has a spot. This has a blemish. You got to buy ours. That's why he went in there and turned all that stuff over. So think about that now. He's in his father's house, but he said, you're turning my father's house into a den of thieves, which was true. So he was a revolutionary and a maverick counterculture. All spiritual. Now, he physically turned things over here, but that's proving to a point to them in that temple that you know you're wrong and you're dead wrong, and at some point in time, you're going to pay for it. Anybody have anything? Let me see. I'm going to skip a couple of these. Let's go to Mark 2:13. Because, of course, we know they got on him for being around, I'm going to use the word, the sinners. Mark 2:13 says, he went out again beside the sea, and all the crowd was coming to him, and he was teaching them. And as he passed by, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax booth, and he said to him, follow me. And he arose and followed him. And as he declined at the table in his house, many tax collectors and sinners were reclining with Yahawashai and his disciples, Talmudim, for there were many who followed him. And the scribes and the Pharisees, when they saw that he was eating with sinners and tax collectors, said to his disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? And when Yahawashai heard it, he said to them, those who are well have no need for a physician, but those who are sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but to sinners. So where was he supposed to go? Right, that's where he was sent, for those who thought they didn't have a way back in. This is a deeper conversation than that, because of how we were scattered, right? But that conversation is, I'm coming back to these people who think there is no way back to the Father, and I'm showing them a way back to the Father. But you, again, and it's an oxymoron, because he's talking about Pharisees and Sadducees, who are, again, I have said, are largely Edomites. They don't have any care about anything of the ways of Yah. They just want to be in control. That's all that is in reality. He's coming back to reestablish order in the way, what we call the way of Yah. Somebody's going to say something?
Yeah, that's that's basically what David was praying in Psalm 51, right? He said, "The broken spirit and the contrite heart you shall not despise." That's who Mashiach is going after. Those who are broken in spirit, contrite. If you got it all figured out, he ain't checking for you.
That's right. That's right. That's right. 100%. I'm 100% with you on that. I'm gonna skip down to some of these. Let's go to Matthew 15. Matthew 15. I'm sure most of the people on this phone know what that is, because they'll tell you in church that he came for everybody. But unless my Bible has some typos in it, it doesn't say that. Matthew 15:21. And you'll hear me flip Yahshua and Yahawashai. Honestly, one of them is just a short, you know how we like to give nicknames. Like my name is technically Daniel, but nobody calls me that. It's Danny. So it's a nickname. So Yahshua or Yahawashai went away from there and withdrew to the district of Tyre and Sidon. 22. And behold, a Canaanite woman. Canaanite is not an Israelite. A Canaanite is a Hamite. So she's not even a Shemite. She's a Hamite. Canaanites and Hamites, that's the land that we took from the Canaanites when we got through the Passover and got into the land, and David wrecked shop, taking over territory. The Canaanite woman from that region came out and was crying, "Have mercy on me, O master, son of David." Son of David is a messianic term, okay? So when somebody says son of David, when you see that in the Bible, you see it a few times, like blind Bartimaeus and people like that. Then they call out son of David. They understood what that meant. Like they understood that meant we believe you are the promised Mashiach that's coming to restore. Now, this is a Canaanite woman, right? But she's crying out to the Mashiach because she understands the power of the position of being HaMashiach, right? The Messiah, okay? "Have mercy on me, O master, son of David. My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon." 23. But he did not answer a word. And his disciples came and begged him, saying, "Send her away, for she is crying out to us." The disciples like, man, get rid of this shit. Hey, she's not one of us. She's a Canaanite. So just tell her to get away. Okay. 25. But she came and knelt before him. What did we just talk about last week? We talked about paying homage, right? She gave him his messianic name, son of David. Then she knelt before him. I'm going to use the word in Hebrew, worshiping him, meaning paying homage, prostrating herself before him. And she said, "Master, help me. Yahshua, help me." And he answered, "It is not right." Now, this is the one that people says he came for everybody. And he answered, "It is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs." But I thought he came for everybody. He's calling this woman a dog. Right. So where in the Bible does it say he came for everybody? Right. He's telling you who he came for. Let's go. Okay. 27. She said, "Yes, master." She's not even offended. She said, "Yes, master. Yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Listen, I know that all too well. My son's on the phone. We got 4 dogs in our house, and every one of them are waiting for something to drop off the table. Right. They don't care that they're not equal to me, my wife, Dylan, my daughter in the house. They said, "We're cool. We know our position, but we'll even take the crumbs off the master's table." That's what this woman understood, the importance of this man so much that, in offense, calling her a dog, right? She's like, "Man, I'm pushing past that." Right. 28. Then Yahawashai answered her, "O woman, great is your amanawah, your faith, your aman. Be it done for you as you desire." And her daughter was healed instantly. But who did he say for? He said, verse 24, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Yashara'al. So did he come for everybody?
And we know, of course, that verse is powerful, but just that whole section is powerful, man, because
yeah,
the power of the Most High amongst Yashara'al was so prevalent that even the other nations saw it and passed it down through their generations. You see what I'm saying? That's why she was able to even call, and hearing about
that's right.
Everything. That's why she was able to call him master. That's why she was able to shakha unto him, which means, that word.
That's right.
And pay him
That's
homage.
right.
So
that's right.
The power of the Most High was so prevalent amongst Yashara'al, the other nations saw it and would pass it down through their generations.
And that Myron, full circle. So when I say I don't know who all's on the phone and where everybody is in their understanding, wisdom, knowledge, understanding. So Yahshua was sent to do his job that allowed us to be put in position to do our job. Our job is in the immediacy, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the uttermost parts of the earth, wake up your people, dry bones. And by way of what Myron just said, as we continue to wake up and it becomes even more and more evident and clear who the children of Yashara'al truly are, the other nations that choose to will be drawn to that. That's what a proselyte is, right? It's a convert, right? So that person will be drawn to the nation. To your point, that Canaanite woman, I would love to know the rest of her story, but I would imagine that after he said your daughter's healed, do you think she didn't follow him around the rest of the time? You think she didn't engage with the brothers and the sisters who were in the way? I doubt very seriously that she gave him all those props, and then when she got the healing, he sent her away. Now it might have taken time for us to grasp the fact that the proselytes were coming in and the scattered were coming in, but I would suspect, if I was writing the rest of the story, that sister was there to the end. Because
you see that, you see it breaking among the scriptures, man. But some nations, nations would see the power of Yashara'al. The power of the Most High in amongst Yashara'al, and they would circumcise themselves, or you know what I mean. And
yes,
so it's the same thing is going to happen, man. And like you said, if we're doing our job, if we're doing our job, just like that scripture says, they will know that we are his disciples by the love we have for one another, by keeping the commandments.
That's right.
We're supposed to do. These nations will see these things. They will see that light in the midst of this darkness, and they will want to cleave as well.
And also,
so let's jump.
As well.
Go ahead on, Scott.
No, I was going to say kind of what Myron was saying, adding to that. They're going to cleave to us, but they're also speaking the word, and they're getting the benefits from that as well.
100%. Well, you could tell this person. Now, this might have been the first time she met the Mashiach. I don't know that, right? I'm just extrapolating. But she knew intimately who he was. Does that make sense? Now she knows intimately a relationship with him. Now, the man called her a dog, and she just pushed right past that. Yeah, I get all that, but I'll take the crumbs off the master's table. That's how. That speaks to what the kingdom is, right? The kingdom of the Most High. What we think of this as crumbs off the master's table, much like when the Queen of Sheba, because this is where you could see some of this as well when Solomon, because of his wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and people came to pay him homage. That's why you don't come to a king without bringing a gift. That's why when you see everybody coming to Solomon from other nations, they brought gifts, and they brought gifts that they thought would surpass what he even expected from them. But with the Queen of Sheba, it said when she got to the daggone gates, right, of the temple, she realized I'm in trouble, because the people at the gates were flossing better than her, and she was balling like I don't know what, right? So that's what when we get our understanding of this, she probably understands, dog, the crumbs off your table are food for the spirit, right? Versus me just saying, okay, it's not for me. I'm gonna push through and I'm gonna try to yoke with you guys for sure. Deuteronomy 4, to what Myron said. Go ahead.
This is Zechariah 8:20. Verse 20 to the end of the chapter.
All right.
Thus says Yah of hosts, peoples shall yet come, even the inhabitants of many cities, The inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, let us go at once to entreat favor of Yah and seek the most host. I myself am going. Many peoples and strong nations shall come to seek Yah of hosts in Jerusalem and to entreat the favor of Yah. Thus says Yah of hosts, in those days 10 men from the nations of every tongue shall come and take hold of the robe of a Judean or a Jew, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that the Most High is with you.
Now, to dovetail on that, Deuteronomy 4. Deuteronomy chapter 4, I guess I'll start at 1. We'll go from 1 through 8. Deuteronomy 4, 1 through 8. Because this is our mission. This is what our mission was. Again, everybody has a role. Yahawashai had his role. That is to shed his blood, because the blood of bulls and goats, Hebrews tells us, cannot do forgiveness of sin. We know that. He had to die on that cross and shed his blood so that we could put ourselves in position. So I'm saying those words purposely, because it's not a, well, he did it, and even if I'm an Israelite, that means I'm in. No, it doesn't. That's not what it means. It means now you have a path back to the Father. And that's what we're striving to continue to walk, is that path. So for Deuteronomy 4:1, and now, O Yashara'al, listen to the statutes and the rules that I'm teaching. This is Moses speaking to the people. And do them, that you may live and go in and take possession of the land that Yah, the God is power of your fathers is giving you. You shall not add to the word that I command you, nor take away from it, that you may keep the commandments of Yah, your power that I command you. Everything we're talking about today is a direct reflection on that statement. Yah is reinstating not what it means in the moment in Jerusalem, but what it meant when Yah gave us the word. That's a sidebar, right? That's what I say means and meant are two different things. It meant something, it means something different in the moment to those people that it was not meant when Yah gave it to us. All right, 3. Your eyes have seen what Yah did at Baal Peor, for Yah, your power, destroyed from among you all the men who fall at Baal Peor. But you who held fast to Yah, your power, are all alive today. See, I have taught you statutes and rules as Yah, my power, commanded me, that you should do them in the land that you are entering to take possession of. Keep them and do them, for that will be your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples. That's the peoples. Remember, at this point in time, in all honesty, we were supposed to be priests to the nations, right? At this stage of the game, right? And that was our mission. For the sight of people who, when they hear all these statutes, will say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. But what great nation is there that has a power so near to it as Yah, our power, is to us whenever we call upon him? And what great nation is there that has statutes and rules so righteous as all of the Torah that I set before you today? Okay. So the people will be drawn to us as we are drawn to Yah and walk in his ways. And it becomes clear through how we're able to move that we are the people. Now, we're generically speaking a long way from that, but I think the harvest is, the dry bones are certainly waking up. Now I'm going to do, let's go to Matthew 23. We're certainly not going to read all of this, but I want to give you a sense that Matthew 23. Now again, you would think from religion that he came to bring peace, but if you read the text, that's far from the truth. Right. Right. He already told us he's going to divide families from each other. Right. And I skipped over some of these scriptures because they talked about that. We had the scripture in there where he told the dude, my dad died. He said, let the dead bury their own dead. Now that feels like a very harsh statement, but if you know the difference between sleep and dead, you would understand that. Because clearly when he said the man's dad was dead, meaning he died outside of wanting to pursue the Most High, versus sleep, right? Which it says when you're in Yahshua, in Yahawashai, through Yah, in Yah through Yahawashai, then you will sleep. You ain't dead. You never die, right? So that distinction to me there is, that's why he said, man, let the dead bury their own dead. You come follow me, right? So you don't end up dead. How about that? 23. Then Yahawashai, Matthew 23. I'm just gonna read a few of these, but this entire, if anybody knows hip hop and you know the song Ether, this is Ether. Then Yahawashai said to the crowds and his disciples, the scribes and the Pharisees sit on the seat of Moses. So do and observe what they tell you, but do not do the works they do. Okay? When they read from the book, hear what they're reading and do what it says. But please don't do what you see them doing. Okay? For they preach, but they do not practice. 4, they tie heavy burdens, hard to bear, lay them on people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to move them with their finger. They do all their deeds to be seen by others, for they make their phylacteries broad and their fringes long, and they love the place of honor at feast and the best seats in the synagogue. Almost everything he said, we see him giving some parable where it should be the opposite. He said, take the seat of low honor when you go somewhere, and then be raised up. Because you take the seat of high honor and get told to move down, now you're all embarrassed, right? Plus, we're supposed to be walking in humility anyway. 6, but you are not to be called rabbi, but you have one teacher, and you are all brothers. Did everybody catch that? That's why we call each other Ak on this phone, not whatever else other words that are out there for that. I mean, that's what we do. Neither be called instructors, but you have one instructor, Mashiach. The greatest among you shall be your servant. Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. I'm going to read a little bit more down. But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut the kingdom of heaven in people's faces, for you neither enter it yourselves, nor those who would enter to go in. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you travel across sea and land to make a single proselyte, and when he becomes a proselyte, you make him twice as much the child of hell as yourself. I don't know how now you see the maverick and the revolutionary, because he's eviscerating the matrix that is existing in that day, and he's pointing everything back to not what the Bible means to them in that time, what the scriptures mean to them through the Pharisees, the Sadducees, but what it meant when he wrote it at a particular time, in a particular place, to a particular people. Now, when we get to where Mashiach is there, there's a mixed multitude and everybody has a say-so in things, and we're not even running our own nation, and we're overseen by the Romans, and then we got Herod and Edomite that is overseeing us. So there's truth in the text, but there's very truth in a lot of things, and we're talking about this as a subgroup because the traditions of men have outweighed what the word said. And he said, bump all that. And that's part of the sword Travis mentioned. He's cutting away, because we read in Deuteronomy, don't do what? Don't add to the word, nor delete the word. Now, John 8:44 is one of my favorite scriptures. That's what he calls them the devil. You of your father the devil, but in the essence of time, we won't go there. But this all came from a conversation I had with someone that drove me crazy in the car, because they kept giving me all the religious mumbo jumbo. So I actually put this together to send to them. And I thought, well, let's walk through this so we can get some history about the climate that Yahawashai was born into. So now it matches the mission he had to come to, right? That's why he was sent at that specific time in the infinite wisdom of the Most High, and why he had to come and how he came. He didn't come with peace, but a sword. And to Travis's point, that sword is the word of Yah. You never saw Yahshua put a hand on anybody physically. So everything he did was about spiritual warfare. And everything we should be doing now is about spiritual warfare. Myron, I don't know if you're still there, but
No, I'm here, bro. I'm here. I'm just like, just praising the Most High, man, because this is exactly it. Just kind of bleaching out. And I apologize for the road noise, y'all. But this is just bleaching out the perspective, the Roman and the Greek perspective that we've been basically trained in. Being born into this matrix, being born outside of the way, outside of our culture. And this is, thanks be to the Most High, He's awakened us. And, this is what we should be doing. Getting back to the ancient paths. You see what I'm saying? This is what it's getting back to the ancient path, getting back to the ancient way, the ancient way of thinking. This is what, even though we live in this construct, but we're in this world, but we're not of this world.
But not of this world.
Ancient way of thinking. So I thank you for this, man. This all praises for this, because this is actually going to propel some other things, Most High willing, that will be discussed as well. So all praise for this, man. Appreciate you, bro.
All praise, and I like what you just said. That's going to be the new way, the ancient way, not just the way, right? The ancient way of the Most High, because that is the pure way, right? Where there is no stumbling blocks laid out for us if we go back to the ancient way and walk that path. All praise.
People say, the ancient way, oh, we live in the new time, this, that, whatever. Scriptures tell you the Most High changes not. Okay?
Nah.
He changes not. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Okay, no. with him anyway, and his righteousness. So we have to get back to the way, the ancient way. So all praises, man. Now you got something, Chris?
All praise.
Nah, I was just agreeing. You took the words out of my mouth. Y'all don't change, and it also says the same thing with Yeshua. Yeshua don't change, because when you see him, you see the Father, etc. But it ain't nothing changed.
Ain't nothing changed. Ain't nothing changed, family. So Danny, I guess that's all you have, bad, bro.
No, I was gonna say culture, language, and context are king, right? To understanding, because I'm gonna go back to what I keep saying this over and over again, because it just resonated with me while I was talking to him. Is that again, he gave us his word at a particular time, in a particular place, for particular people, and what his word means, right, is what it meant. Not no eisegesis and all of this stuff. Is and Myron, that's the word Myron used that I just pricked my spirit when he said it, is the ancient way. I'm not saying throw the New Testament away. I'm saying if you anchor down in what is in the Torah, right, the prophets, right, the writings, then you see the ancient way, and you have a clear and concise path, and you're not confused by anything. So all praise, Myron. I appreciate the opportunity to jump on here for you today.
We do, bro. You know how we do. It's all together, man. We all together in this thing, man. Me personally, I always say, man, I don't see individual assemblies. I see the people of Yah. You know what I mean? And that's what about, you know what I mean? Right. So all praises, man. And I appreciate you coming on and blessing us, man, for real. So anybody got any comments, concerns?
Y'all mighty quiet today.
No doubt.
Yeah, precept.
You got precept?
Yeah, just give me a minute. I got bait.
And Josh, after your precept, will you close us out?
All
right.
So this is
and don't hold on one more second. Don't forget CL2 and Trav at 3 Eastern time. And I don't have everybody on here, but let me try to dig up. I'm on my computer, so I don't know if I can. Can y'all put the chat? Can you put the in the chat, Chris or Trav? Oh, you did it already. It's in the chat now. So everybody go to chat, and at 3 o'clock Eastern time, our West brothers will be on at 3 o'clock our time, which is noon their time.
You guys
All
study
right,
tomorrow?
Josh. Sorry.
So,
No. I didn't send that out yet. No study tomorrow. I'll be driving back from Gainesville. You know, Yah in his infinite wisdom, Myron asked me to do this, so I got my fix on today.
oh, praise. Hey. All right. So this is on the tip of Yahawashai being a revolutionary. And this is John chapter 2, verse. I'm gonna start at verse 13. The Passover of the Judeans was at hand, and Yahawashai went up to Jerusalem. In the temple, he found those who were selling oxen and sheep and pigeons and money changers sitting there, and making a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep. Wait, hold on. I just lost my place. I'm gonna start back at verse 15. And making a whip out of cords, he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and oxen, and he poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned the tables, and told those who sold the pigeons, take these things away. Do not make my father's house for my father's house, a house of trade. His disciples remembered what that is. It was written, the zeal for your house will consume me.
Mm, mm, mm. And now I want, before people, I want everybody to remember, do you not know that your body is the temple of the Ruach Kodesh? So we now are the temples. So we have to do the exact same thing to our temples as Yahawashai did. Any kind of shenanigans got to be whipped and cast out. That's why Paul said, I die daily. Right. So remember, you are the walking temples at this stage of the game. All right, Josh, on you.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh for your Shabbat observance, for your Shabbat that you have given to be a sign to our forefathers, a sign with our nation that we are in an everlasting covenant with you, Father. Thank you for another day. Thank you for your goodness, for your mercy, for your love, and your compassion. And Father, I pray that you continue to just cleanse us of all the pagan ways that we have adopted, that we have taken on, so we may take on the culture, the customs of righteousness that you have given to us, Father, to live by and to walk by, Father. And Father, thank you for the study. Thank you for the words and precepts and the scriptures that was given, Father. But it all came from you. It all flowed down from Shemayim. And Father, I pray that the remainder of this day be blessed, the remainder of this day be restful, that we find rest in you, Father, and that we just continue to do and walk according to how you desire for us to walk, Father, and do the things that you desire for us to do. Father, we praise you, we glorify you, magnify you. Shama Mashiach, Yahawashai, Halawayah, Amen.
Hallelujah. Amen.
Love y'all, family.
All
Appreciate you.
praise.
Shalom.
Shalom.